observe what is right and do what is just. It's a beautiful line that we just read in the first reading. And one of the things that's important to understand is that we're in a box. We can be observed, known, and loved. We must recognize the fact that as human beings, we have limits and are mortal. This is the first understanding of all people with common sense, who understand and recognize what is right, and what is wrong, even when we're wrong ourselves. There's a beautiful line in sacred scripture that says, the just man is his first accuser. This is why when we come to the Most Holy Mass, we all kind of confess or have a general confession of sin. And we recognize that the moral understanding comes from an objective standpoint of being in relationship with one another and the living God in our midst. They do not stem from some kind of fascination within our mind, or it's not something the church kind of conjures up to control people, but more so they come through a discovery or revelation of concrete actions that are good for us and those that are not, and those that have the wisdom to know the difference. And this is the reality of church teaching. This is why most societal structures within the world have what is known as moral norms. And they develop from an understanding of the dignity of the human person, the fact that they are loved, and they should be protected by laws and boundaries, that they're loved by a mother and a father, and if not by them, by the living God himself, who desires the best for them, and ultimately their happiness. This is why the God of Israel set the laws before the people. He saw their sadness and destructive ways that they were living, that they were destroying others and themselves in the process, in their blind pursuit of happiness, and they needed real direction in their lives, such as our culture today. Again, this is why the church teaches what she teaches, and the more we stray from church teaching, the more we kind of throw ourselves into the darkness and the abyss, maybe not knowingly at first. Then suddenly it usually hits people later in life, like the prodigal son who finally kind of comes to his senses and desires to return to the Father's house, whom the Father was waiting for with love and compassion. And we forget that we were called to the marvelous light of Christ, who teaches the whole truth about human life. For there's an intense study about church teaching or church moral teaching today, and its effects from disobedience or straying from it. And of course, there are those who mock it in the church and out of the church, thinking it's outdated. The church needs to kind of progress with the times. And the 9 things I'm going to tell you are nothing new. And I'm going to show you why they're important to understand and to follow. Sometimes you don't see their immediate effects, but time reveals all. And it has. The first is extramarital sex, or sex with someone who's not your spouse, premarital sex, or cohabitation. The second is the homosexual lifestyle. Third is sex change and transgender philosophy. Fourth is pornography. Fifth is artificial birth control and the overpopulation myth. Sixth is abortion and not recognizing the human person in the womb. Seventh is eugenics and the intrinsic dignity of the mentally disabled. Eighth is in vitro fertilization. And ninth is eugenics and physician-assisted suicide. And these consequences that result from these particular actions, first and foremost, in the individual person's life, statistics reveal we see a radical decline significantly in spiritual and religious commitment, along with ethical and moral commitment. And as a consequence, their emotional health takes a toll, which is manifest in steep increases in depression, anxiety, antisocial aggressivity, major psychiatric disorders, substance abuse, familial tensions, and suicides. And these consequences are correlated with each of the above 9 moral issues by psychiatric, medical, and sociological studies. So it's understood in the church and outside the church in a real way. These negative effects and consequences are validated by surveys and data, most of which are peer-reviewed journals and reputable institutions. And all of these issues are a result of turning our back on the church and our teachings. people trying to make up their own rules about life or twist the fabric of reality, and people getting hurt in the process themselves. Therefore, we see that the church, in her wisdom, teaches these things for our own good, our own happiness, our own joy in this life. Not only our own joy, but for the joy of the whole world. And it also gives us a place to place our foot in that pursuit of holiness and justice, and also to help others to see that these paths do not lead to the happy end they desire, but quite the contrary. Another reason the church will teach what she teaches for another 2,000 years if Christ has not returned by then. The church actually cares about you and me, whether we might think that or not. And of course, it always teaches in opposition to all the lies within the world about the way we should live our lives, for we are called to live a holy and just life.